In this video, I will go over a Unit 4 example. So Unit 4 is the feasibility study. It is also called the recommendation report. In your book, it's called the feasibility study or the recommendation report. So make sure to follow along with the at a glance documents for the last couple of weeks to make sure that you have also read about what this document is and the purpose and how to improve yours. The book has like annotated examples that you can read in more detail about, an example of one of these documents. But in this video, I'm just going to quickly go over a student example just to give you some more context. So you will see in the Unit 4 module that I have already provided a template. The example that I'm showing here is actually from a real student that submitted this fall 2023 semester. And they used the content, the headers and things from the template, but as you can see, it's very fancy, very pretty. So you can do it this way or not. You don't get like extra points for making it really, really pretty, but either way, you do need to use all of the headers and the general layout that I provide in the template. So this is the cover page. As you can see, it's very, very nice. So this is the abstract. So in this video, you'll also have access to a PDF where you can, see and read this content more closely, carefully, slower. So I'm not going to pause long enough for you to like read everything. I'm just going to go over some highlights. So as I've mentioned before, but just in case you've forgotten, Units 2, 3, and 4 are all about the same project. It's all about you are an IT manager at a business. The business, because of whatever reasons you've described before, has hired 10 new employees. Your Unit 2 document should have clearly outlined why the business needed to hire the 10 new employees, what their job titles are, what their job duties are, and why it's important to find the right laptops for these new employees. So Unit 4, which is the feasibility or recommendation report, is the document where you're going to outline all of your research, and then make a recommendation of one device at the end. So one of the biggest mistakes that people usually make is they don't make a clear recommendation at the end. At the end of your paper, it should not say, well, here are 5 options or 3 options. Your paper should at the end say, here's the one option that I recommend, and the rest of the paper should provide support for that conclusion. So we'll go through this and take a look at how this student did that. And again, you'll have access to exactly what you're seeing here. So make sure to go and read this example for yourself as well. So the abstract is similar to just a summary. It's very concise. So this one, she only made it 1 page. So it just needs to go over the very basics of like the story of what has happened. So she starts by telling us what's going on in the business, when this started, and so they needed 10 new realtors. The CEO, who she calls Paul Wall, which I thought was hilarious, authorized the research proposal, leading to them, doing the research. And then after all of their research is done, this is what they are recommending. This is the price, and these are the features that this item has and why, just a brief explanation of why these features are needed. So as you can see, this is without all this, like extra stuff or whatever, this would only be maybe like 3 paragraphs. So it needs to be very concise and to the point. Going down, here is the table of contents. And then the executive summary. So the executive summary is a little bit longer, but it basically just tells the same story of what is going on in the business, the story of this project. You just tell it in a slightly different way, and it should be a little bit longer. So look at the examples in the book. It can kind of give you an idea of about how long each of these should be, but the executive summary is about a page. The abstract should be quite a bit shorter though, maybe about 2 to 3 paragraphs. Okay, so going on to the introduction. So in the introduction section for Unit 4, it should be similar to your introduction from Unit 2, except remember in Unit 2 you have asked for permission to conduct the research. Then you start to conduct the research. You're doing online research, you are doing your surveys or your interviews, all of that. And then Unit 4 is the culmination. So at this point, you're finished. So another big thing that people usually do is they don't use the right tense for when they write. So when you start writing this, imagine that you have finished all of the research and now you're going to sit down and write about what happened, the story of, what happened with the business, and then about your research, and then about your conclusions. So a lot of the content in this document should be in past tense, okay? So, for example, on November 7, 2023, formal approval was given for our proposal, so forth. So, this is another example. Our research dove into, so you can see that most of the content of this entire paper is past tense because we're in the mindset that we have finished our research project. It is in the past. I'm not sure why so many people make that error and they write in present tense. I don't know why, so that's why I'm just explaining it again. That's like a really easy thing to do to improve the grade on your paper, to make sure it's written in the right tense. In this case, most of it should be written in past tense. Okay, so in the introduction, you're familiar with kind of what goes here, but you just kind of go over the business problem and tell the story of how you got to the point of writing this paper. Okay, for the research methods, here you're going to describe what in more detailed what you mentioned in Unit 2. So if you did Unit 2 correctly, you made a list of like, these are the tasks that we are going to do to research this problem. So when you get to Unit 4 and you're in the research methods section, you're basically going to take those tasks, put them over here, and then write about what you did to accomplish each of those research tasks. So for example, excuse me, the first one, we met using direct interactions with our top performers, aiming to create an open dialogue, which allowed realtors to express their needs and preferences. So basically in this one, she's describing the interviews, okay? When you go down here, she's basically just, the second one, she's basically just describing doing like online research and the online research is related to the interviews. It's important to make these connections between what you're doing. If you write this with like imagining that you're working in a business and thinking about the questions your manager would have and things like that, it'll go so much easier. Okay. The third one is Okay, we did the interviews, we did our online research, and using that information, we kind of went back to doing online research. And what she actually says is right here. With this information, we were able to establish the top laptop choices, and then she goes on from there. Okay, so these are the methods that she used in order to do the research. And she's referencing the tasks that were outlined in Unit 2. Okay. Alrighty, so going down to the research methods. So here she just describes a little bit more about what methods she used. So like the realtor meetings, the questionnaires, the online research, and so forth. Okay. The results section. So in this section, she talks about what they found out and through which method and or like which research method she used in order to get the results. So meeting with the realtors, this is what she did, this is what she found out. The laptop selection criteria. So she through these meetings she established which criteria they should look for, and then from there she determined that okay, my criteria that I needed to research for these realtors. And then when you read this, you'll see that she keeps referring back to the job title, the realtors, because depending on the job title, that person will need a different type of laptop. So just as an aside, if on your Unit 2 paper I wrote you need to use the job title throughout, you need to reference what these specific people need. This is why. Because if you are a manager and you manage, let's just say, realtors, but you also manage like administrative assistants. A realtor who is out in the field, walking around, showing people houses, driving around all day, needs a different type of device than an administrative assistant who is going to sit in an office all day and might need access to different programs or whatever. So that is why over and over and over, I probably wrote on papers that you have to give the context, because otherwise what you're researching won't make sense, your explanation of it won't make sense. So in this case, you can see that she refers over and over again to what the realtors need to do in the field. She even says it, right here in this part. And then using that information of what she has established these new employees who are realtors will need, she knows that they need the extended battery life, whatever storage capacity they need. And then based on the budget that she was given from the CEO, Johnny Dang, a lot of people wrote that they were going to give the budget to the like CEO, and that's not how it works. The CEO would provide you with like, okay, this is how much money we have to spend on these laptops. So using that amount of money, go find me 10 computers that is within this budget. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. You can always email me if any of this is confusing. So here, a cost-efficient laptop aligning with a $10,000 budget ensures value and so forth, okay? So she is telling you that the things that she looked for in the laptop are informed by her meetings, her interviews, and the criteria that she learned that these realtors need, okay? And then, of course, like customer reviews really influence almost any buying decision nowadays. So she also adds that. So coming down here, let's see. Yeah, okay. So she explains, what she's looking for, and then the results, the second part of the results section. And this is a student paper, so it's not exactly perfect. I think in the examples in the textbook, this content on this first results page would have been under research methods. Okay, so, but the content is still there. This paper was still an A. I want to just reinforce that it doesn't have to be perfect, but the content has to be there, okay? This was like a 196 out of 200 or something. This was a really high graded paper. But I do technically think in the textbook this content is in another section. Okay, moving on to this other results section. So basically, she just kind of introduces the criteria and the ones that she are looking at. Those are the ones that she researched. Then coming down to evaluating the laptops, she made this cute little graphic, but she's basically just telling you these are the 4 that I compared, and then she puts the criteria that's related to what's written above in this chart. This chart is not perfect at all. It's a little, to me, it's a little confusing, but it shows that she did some research. She looked at these things. She understands what needs to be communicated. So she has the laptops listed over here, and then the battery life, the storage, the RAM, the cons, and the cost. So you can see everything is compared right here. You can make a chart like this, or you can just write it in like like with bullet points. Either way is fine. If you don't want to make a chart, that's okay. Just use the bullet points. No big deal. Okay, so moving down to more results. This is the section that should be the longest because you are explaining what the criteria, how each computer that you researched compares to the criteria that's needed for the new employees, in this case, in the realtors. So in this section, she just goes into more detail about how she excluded 2 options and decided to focus on these 2. Okay, so moving down to the conclusions. Another big thing that people do incorrectly. This section, conclusions, this does not mean the conclusion of the paper. This means conclusions of your research. So conclusions means like what you found out, right? So do whatever you do. I will know if you watch this video or not. If you start this part with in conclusion, this is not the conclusion of the paper. This is conclusion of the research. So in this case, she writes about the last 2 options and just comparing them, okay? And what's needed versus what the computers can offer. Then the recommendations section. So after all of that, she tells you we propose the purchase of 10 Lenovo IdeaPad L340 laptops. So there is just one. There is one single recommendation. She explains why. She tells you, she gives support to her recommendation. So for example, the limitations of our laptops show technological gaps that, if unaddressed, could lead to the departure of valuable team members, potential business loss, and loss of potential revenue. The use of personal devices for storing sensitive client data poses legal risks. So she's basically supporting like, hey, we really need to buy these folks these devices, okay? And let's see. And she explains why she did not choose the Apple MacBook. She explains briefly why she chose the Lenovo IdeaPad. The recommendation section, as you can see, so it's only like 1 page or so. Most of your support for this recommendation is in the results section up above. You cannot, So you can't just come down here to the recommendations section and write like 1 or 2 sentences and not have anything up here in the results section to support your recommendation. Okay, so those are kind of like the top things that folks usually get incorrect. So just to recap, let's scroll back up here. So, okay, so let's see. Sorry. Okay, so one thing that folks usually get incorrect, they don't provide the context in the introduction. So, for example, if I wrote on your Unit 2 paper, there's the business context is missing, make sure it's in your Unit 4 paper so you can get a better grade. So that's one. The second thing is not explaining enough about your research methods. The third is not just explaining, you need quite a bit of content in your results section. You need to connect what you're finding out back to the needs of the realtors or the new employees, whoever you wrote about. That's a big one. If your paper doesn't have that, it's not going to be an A, B, or C paper. I can just tell you that now, unfortunately. And then another big error is just reading this header and then starting this with in conclusion. No, do not do that. That's not what this means. And then in the recommendation section, whatever recommendation you make, you need to recommend one device, one, and tell us why. And the why here needs to be supported by the content up here. Alrighty? So I hope that was helpful. I know that this was fast. I tried to talk quickly because I know people hate long videos. But I hope that this was helpful. Make sure to email me if you have questions. I'm happy to help, and good luck.